Hello, dear friends of StoryHaven. This is StoryHaven, the place where we pause amid the rush of life to listen to small stories that hold great lessons about living, about human hearts, and about ourselves. Have you ever wondered, does pushing yourself to the point of exhaustion truly prove your strength? Or one day, will your body and soul whisper, enough? Please stay with me until the end of today's story, because this lesson might forever change the way you treat yourself. Once upon a time, in a small village nestled along the tranquil Loire River in France, where golden wheat fields stretched endlessly beneath the sky, ancient stone cottages were cloaked in green moss, and centuries-old oak trees stood silently along winding country lanes, there lived an old man named Henri. He was well past 80. His back bent like an oak bowed by countless harsh winters. His hands were thin and veined, the knuckles swollen from years of toil. Each time he rose from his worn wooden chair, his knees cracked in protest, and his breath came in short, wheezing gasps. Yet every dawn, before the sun fully rose over the misty hills, Henri was already awake. He splashed cold water on his face from the moss-covered stone well, then carefully balanced a heavy willow basket on his head. Inside were potatoes still crusted with earth, plump red beets, crisp bunches of lettuce, Brussels sprouts, and fragrant onions, all grown by his own hand in the small garden behind his cottage. The basket was far too heavy for a man of his age, but Henri never complained. He believed that silent endurance was the truest measure of strength. The villagers often saw him walking slowly along the red dirt road to the weekly market. Barefoot in his old wooden clogs, he kept the basket steady with a folded woolen cloth atop his white hair. Children would point and whisper, "There goes old Henri with his vegetables." Some adults nodded politely in greeting. Others haggled fiercely over every cent, as if his sweat and effort were worth nothing. Henri accepted it all in quiet patience. In his youth, he had been the strongest man in the village. He plowed fields from sunrise to sunset, hauled heavy sacks of wheat onto carts, carried stones to build walls and repair roofs for neighbors. Life had taught him one harsh lesson, repeated over and over: endure. When his gentle wife died in a bitter winter, when his only son left for Paris and gradually stopped writing, when age and illness made his hands tremble so he could barely grip a hoe, Henri kept enduring. He even endured his own failing body. On every trip to the market, his neck burned as though scorched. His spine ached as if hammered relentlessly. Sometimes his vision blurred from exhaustion, yet he scolded himself inwardly. "Don't be weak. Others suffer far more." He muttered under his breath, "Keep walking." One stifling summer morning, the heat rose early and thick from the ripening fields. Henri placed the basket on his head and began his familiar journey. After only a few steps he swayed, but he pressed on. Halfway to the market stood a massive ancient oak, its broad canopy offering generous shade where travelers often rested, tied their horses, and shared loaves of bread. That day, as Henri reached the tree, his body finally gave out. His knees buckled, he collapsed onto the damp grass, and the basket tumbled from his head, scattering potatoes, beets, and greens across the ground. For a long moment he simply sat there, ashamed. "Look at you," he berated himself bitterly. "You can't even carry your own burden anymore." As he struggled to stand, a calm, gentle voice emerged from the shade. "Why do you speak so harshly to yourself, old friend?" Henri looked up. Beneath the oak sat an elderly traveler wrapped in a faded gray wool cloak. His eyes were deep and serene, like a still autumn lake. No one in the village knew where the traveler came from. He appeared only occasionally, resting quietly under the tree, offering no sermons unless asked. "I am lazy," Henri answered bitterly. "My body is weak. If I stop, I will starve." The traveler smiled softly. "You call yourself weak, yet every morning you rise and carry a load greater than your years. Is that weakness?" Henri fell silent. The traveler bent down, picked up a fallen beet, brushed off the dirt, and placed it back in the basket. "Tell me," he continued, "if this basket were torn, would you curse it or mend it?" "I would mend it." And if an old horse collapsed beneath an overloaded cart, I would lighten the load. Then why are you kinder to a basket and a horse than to your own body? The words pierced the armor Henri had worn for decades. His chest tightened. Life taught me to be tough, he whispered. If I rest, hunger waits. If I complain, no one listens. The traveler regarded him with understanding eyes. Kindness to oneself is not surrender. A candle that burns without oil does not prove devotion. It only proves foolishness. Then the traveler lifted the basket, removed some of the vegetables, and wrapped them neatly in his own cloth. Today carry less, sell less, and rest here beneath this tree before you go on. Every old habit in Henri screamed no, but his aching, trembling body whispered yes. For the first time in decades, he listened to his body. That day he arrived at the market late. He sold fewer vegetables and earned less money. Yet when he returned home, something remarkable happened. He was not exhausted. He even had strength left to sit by the hearth, savor a piece of cheese, and sip warm wine. That night he slept deeply and dreamlessly, the soundest sleep he had known in years. The next morning, Henri did something he once thought impossible. He put fewer vegetables in his basket. The villagers noticed. Why so little today? One asked. Getting too old? Another teased. Shame rose in Henri like a tide. Then he remembered the traveler's words. He straightened as much as he could, smiled faintly, and replied, Yes, I am old, and I am learning to care for what remains of me. In the days that followed, Henri lingered longer beneath the great oak. He drank from his leather flask, breathed the fresh air deeply, and stopped calling himself weak. A quiet change began. Because he walked more slowly, people noticed him more. The baker at the market began offering him a fresh baguette for half price. A woman who often bought his produce started paying a little extra, saying, Your vegetables taste sweeter now that you're not rushing. Children ran alongside to pick up anything that fell. One golden autumn afternoon, a young man from the village asked, Monsieur Henri, why don't you just retire? Henri smiled warmly, his eyes bright. Because work keeps me alive. But kindness, especially to myself, keeps me whole. Winter came, bringing cold winds from the distant Alps. Henri fell gravely ill. This time he did not force himself to the market. He stayed in bed, listening to rain patter on the tiled roof. And then something he had never dared hope for happened. Villagers came to visit. The baker brought hot soup. The woman sent a plate of stew. Children left wildflowers on his windowsill. They sat with him, told stories, and laughed. Lying there amid the sound of rain and the warmth of the fire, Henri finally understood a truth he had long denied. Suffering is not the highest virtue. Rest is not weakness. Being kind to oneself is not selfish. When he recovered, his basket never again held its former weight. His steps remained slow, but his face grew peaceful. His smile came more easily. And sometimes, as villagers passed the ancient oak, they swore they glimpsed the old traveler sitting there, smiling toward the village, though no one could ever find him again. From that day on, in the evenings gathered around hearths, the people of the Loire Valley told the story of the old vegetable seller. They said the one who carries the heaviest burden longest is not the one with the strongest shoulders, but the one who finally learns to set the burden down. That's the end of today's StoryHaven tale, dear friends. Remember, you don't need to prove your worth by enduring endless suffering. You deserve rest, love, and kindness toward yourself, because only when you are whole can you truly give love to others. If this story touched your heart, please share it with loved ones and friends, and don't forget to subscribe to StoryHaven and turn on notifications so you won't miss the next meaningful story. Thank you for listening and joining StoryHaven. Be kind to yourself today, even if it's just a warm cup of water, a deep breath, or a short nap. You deserve it. See you in the next story. StoryHaven, where stories heal the soul.